3 lives, 3 worlds. Wherever step goes, Lotus blooms. Metamorphosis. Lotus Step Chapter 8. Book 1. For days passed in the blink of an eye, and the next day was the auspicious day approved by the imperial master to be suitable for the emperor to drive. Chengyu sat in the Shirhua building, eagerly awaiting the successive messages from Runan Hall. He had been looking forward to it for 4 days, but he didn't receive any. He was extremely frustrated. Fortunately, something happened to Xiaoli, which diverted her attention. What happened to Xiaoli was just some fireworks. It is said that Miss Saizhener, who played the pipa in Mengxian Tower yesterday, suddenly became a nun and became a sister-in-law. There are many rumors in Liuma, Hua Street. It is said that Dr. Li from Renantong has been in love with Miss Jinner for 2 years and has been saving money infatuatedly to replace her. Miss Jinner redeems herself. Hua Feiwu was worried that Dr. Li could not bear the blow, so he made a special trip to Shirhua building to let Chengyu watch Dr. Li more these days. Chengyu also felt that Hua Feiwu was worried, so she avoided Ju Hibiscus and went to Yan'an Hall to meet Xiaoli, thinking that it would be best to accompany him for a leisurely stroll on the street. Shopping around more can relieve worries and boredom. There were no patients in Renantong today. Dr. Li's handsome face was indeed filled with sadness. When he saw Chengyu coming to invite him, he seemed to have expected that she would come to him. Without saying a word, he closed the hall. Then he went out with her. The two of them walked all the way from Lin'anmen to Qinghe Street, then turned from Qinghe Street and wandered into Tsai Lane. The building at the end of Tsai Lane is the Mengxian Tower. Qingyu stood with Xiaoli in front of Mengxian Tower for a while and sneezed twice in the cold. Xiaoli stared at an acacia tree beside his building. I walked and ended up here. Chengyu thought that Xiaoli was hurt and was about to express his feelings to her, so he gathered his energy and took the initiative to approach Xiaoli. Xiaoli glanced at her and pointed sadly at the acacia tree he was staring at just now. I still remember that during the first lunar month of the year before last, that was where I first met Miss Jenner. At that time, she was being raped by a dandy. And some evil servants pestered her, asking her to play a pipa song under the albizia tree. Cheng Yudui listened with a pair of ears and said nothing. Xiaoli said, "You also want to talk?" Chenyu was a sports girl who liked to play kuju. She was really not good at romantic matters. She didn't know what she could say in such a gloomy and tragic moment. She was mute for a long time and squeezed out one sentence. "Oh, there is also something in the book. I have written about this, where heroes save beauties all start like this." Then Miss Jenner was entangled by evil servants. "Then you went over to help her, and you two got to know each other?" Xiaoli looked at the horizon from a distance. "Oh no, that dandy prince is actually a friend of mine. We rarely meet each other, so we forced Miss Jenner to play a pipa line, and then forced her to play Feiwa Diansue. We felt she played very well, and I often made appointments with her to listen to music." Xiaoli concluded with a look of reminiscence. "It's no secret that we don't know each other anymore. I can be considered a close friend of Miss Jenner." Chengyu said silently, This development seems to be a bit different from the development of stories about talented men and beautiful women in books." Xiaoli modestly said, "It's nothing special." After a pause, he changed the subject and looked at her. "If I'm not wrong, you came to me today specifically to ask me how to comfort your hibiscus?" Chengyu said, Xiaoli said profoundly, "Zhu Jin heard me say that Miss Jenner plays the pipa very well. He always comes with me when I come to Mengxian Tower." In fact, I could tell at that time that Zhu Jin was very special to Miss Jenner. He nodded. He praised himself. "I really have vision," and looked up at Chengyu. "This time Miss Jenner became a monk. Zhuhan is really hurt, isn't it?" "Alas," he sighed, "Zhuhan is born with a talent. Genre the girl is also good at both sex and art. It is a good thing that the two of them can achieve perfection, but sometimes a relationship in the world may not always be able to achieve results." This time Miss Jenner became a monk. I think she felt that since Miss Jenner has this Buddhist fate, her fate in the world will be. Xiaoli shook his head sympathetically. "Actually, I don't know how to comfort Ju Hibiscus." "How good are you these days?" "Keep an eye on him and see if he can figure it out on his own." Changyu was silent for a moment and said, "Well, Shaoli, I think." Shaoli raised his head and glanced at the sky. "The hospital can't be closed for too long. I have to go back first," and he told Chengyu earnestly, "Just do as I said. Follow the hibiscus more. Don't make him more troubled. Even if the doctor doesn't medical heart. But Zhu Jin, I know that if you let him be sad for a while, maybe it will pass." Seeing Chengyu's confused face, he thought for a while and put forward a new suggestion. "Maybe he should be honest, he just likes to play the pipa, so let's do it. In a few days, when I'm free, I'll take him to Quailviewen and introduce him to Pipa Fairy Jean Sanyang. It's a love wound, haha. What kind of love wound can't be cured by a meal of wine?" Changyu said, "I think this may be." Shaoli waved his hand and interrupted her. "Even if Zhu Jin is firmer, he can't be cured after 1 meal of flower wine." "I don't believe he can't be cured after 10 meals. We're here for 10 meals, haha, that's it." As he spoke, he patted Chengyu on the shoulder, sighed for his infatuated friend, and walked away. Chengyu looked at Shaoli's back and thought for a moment. He felt that Shaoli, who was always ready to treat Zhu Hibiscus to drink 10 meals of flower wine, was unlikely to be infatuated with saving money to redeem himself for some poor widower. As for Shaoli's categorical statement that Zhu Jin was in love with Cai Zhen'er, Chengyu thought that when she slipped out of Shihua Tower today, she heard Zhu Jin talking to Yao Huang about the fortunes of the country after 100 years of the Great Shi dynasty. And her words were quite interesting. The meaning of lamentation. She felt that if Zhu Jin really loved Cai Zhen'er so much, he should devote all his regrets to himself. Why should he lament the national destiny of the Great Shi dynasty? She couldn't understand the love triangle between Zhu Jin, Li Muzhou, and Cai Zhen'er. But in general, no one would be confused about this matter, and no one would be killed. Since no one would be killed, it would be fine. After she figured it out, she planned to go back to Shiwalu. When she looked up, she saw a bustle at the entrance of the alley, and she couldn't help but walk over with her legs. It turned out that there was an old man playing monkey at the entrance of the alley. The 2 little monkeys were very skillful and clever, attracting many people to watch. Chengyu also watched for a while. After the little monkey performed a piece of riding a wooden wheel, the old man came to ask for money with a straw hat in his hand. Chengyu touched his sleeves and was shocked to realize that he didn't bring a money bag when he went out today. The little monkey made a face at her, and she accepted it with a smile, half-heartedly planning to walk all the way back to Shiwalu. It happened that God was against her, and all the interesting things that she could not find on ordinary days were piled up on the streets she passed today. The elusive Mianren Zhao, the face maker, was on a side street off Sai Lane. A small noodle stall was set up. Tang Huazhang, who had been away from Beijing for several months, set up a sugar painting stall next to Noodle Man Zhao, and Carpenter Chin, who had opened a shop several times in a month, actually opened a shop today for a performance. He picked up his newly made 12-square lock. Chinyu immediately wanted to rush back to get the money. But it was hard to say whether he would be able to escape from Zhu Jin's nose after returning. After thinking about it, he had to give up. She wandered past the noodle shop and looked at the little kuju figures on the stall. She wandered past the sugar painting stall and looked at the kuju sugar paintings. She wandered into Carpenter Chen's shop. In the wood shop, I looked at the 12-square lock again. I stood in front of the shop and then in front of that shop. After getting tired from standing around, I walked listlessly to a nearby herbal tea shop. The boss knew her well and bought her a cup of herbal tea. Chingyu drank tea dejectedly. Halfway through, a boy of 12 or 13 years old suddenly appeared, took off a blue baggage from his back and put it on the square table next to her, saying someone gave it to her. Chengyu unexpectedly opened the furoshiki and saw many exquisite small boxes stacked inside. She opened one, and her eyes were instantly wide open. Inside was the kuju-faced man. She opened another one, and inside was the kuju sugar painting. Shaking her hands, she opened a slightly larger 12-square lock made of rosewood and jumped in. In her eyes, she seemed to still be able to see the fingerprints she had just left on her head. Then she opened several boxes nearby one by one. They were all interesting gadgets that she had seen or touched in other shops when she was wandering around. Changyu looked up in shock and wanted to ask the little boy something, but he was nowhere to be seen. The tea shop owner laughed and raised his hand to guide her. "Young master, are you looking for that boy?" While the young master was counting the gift boxes, the boy went to the restaurant across the street. The old man didn't see him come out. Maybe he's still in the building. Changyu still held the kuju-faced man in her left hand. She hurriedly thanked the boss and asked him to look at the box on the table for her. She walked out of the shop and headed straight to the restaurant across the street. As soon as she walked out of the tea shop, she saw the silhouette of a young man in white sitting by the window on the second floor across the street. At that time, clouds moved in, blocking the strong sun. Under the clear blue sky, the quaint restaurant in front looks like an elegant beauty standing on this old street. A poinciana tree in front of the building quietly pokes a branch into the second-floor window. The young man was slightly raising his head to look at the rugged solitary branch. Most of his face was blocked by the branch, but even so, Changyu recognized who it was. She happily waved to the young man, "Brother Lian-san." The young man seemed to be stunned, and then he lowered his head to look at her. He looked at her for a while, then held up his chin and gestured to her, "Come up." Changyu's eyebrows curved, "Then wait for me." The Third Highness looks very relaxed today, but the Third Highness has only been able to enjoy half a day's leisure in the past 10 days. He came down to this mortal world in order to take care of Chang'e, who was reborn, so he repeatedly performed extraordinary feats and was promoted to the position of general. However, the general of this dynasty is always busy leading troops to defend against the enemy and also foretelling political affairs. In addition to the government affairs recently, His Highness has a new thing to do. He has to go to the suburbs of Beijing every night to visit, which makes him even busier. This new thing is to find the remains of the God of Truth, Ziti. The Third Highness actually did not want to get involved in this matter, but when it came to the God of Zuti, although he did not want to meddle in other people's affairs, he had to make some considerations. The god Zuti has the ability to go back in time. Before her divinity has awakened, it will be very easy to hold her hostage once she is found, not to mention the gods, ghosts, demons, or demons. And no matter which clan finds out and kidnaps Zuti at this time, it will be a disaster for Bohuang. If you get Zuti, you can get the ability to go back in time. As for the demons, they must want to return to the prehistoric era. At that time, Lord Shaoan unified the demons and dominated the southern wilderness. He dominated the gods in the east and suppressed the ghosts in the west. What a glorious scene the demons had. As for the ghosts, they must want to return to 20,000 years ago. Before, at that time, Qing Sangjuan was not sealed, and the ghost clan was able to compete with the gods. The ghost clan was very prosperous for a while. As for the gods, although the gods were the most powerful among the 3 clans at this time, once they got Zuti, the ambitious Xiaizheng Emperor Yi is bound to have some new calculations and considerations. Looking at the 8 wastelands, the only ones who can protect the ancestors and protect the world with selflessness are probably the 2 ancient gods, Emperor Donghua in Taichung Palace and God Jian of Shirley Peach Grove. And if you want to be reliable in this matter, you have to look to Emperor Donghua. According to the manner in which His Highness the Third Highness has always done things, he wanted to divert this disaster to Emperor Donghua, but unfortunately he was a god from the lower world at this time, and it was difficult for him to personally spread the word to Donghua. According to the time, the emperor was in seclusion, so he had to take care of this matter by himself. His Highness has been searching for more than 10 days, but has found nothing. However, this morning he got a Cambodian invitation from Imperial Master Suji, which unexpectedly contained some clues. The Imperial Master said that he had recently obtained a book, which actually contained an ancient god that he had never heard of. He wanted to consult with him sometime. Therefore, His Highness the Third Prince spared half a day and went out to teach the Imperial Master. As a result, I met Changyu halfway. He was actually very close to her at that time, but she was squatting in front of a noodle maker's stall and was so absorbed in watching the noodle maker that she didn't notice him at all. His Highness the Third Highness looked at her with squinted eyes and thought, who said she was looking forward to going to restaurants with him, sitting at home and waiting for him to send her news? He didn't believe she was really wise. She probably liked the Kuju noodle man very much. She held up a red sandalwood hairpin and discussed it with the old man who was making the noodle. "I'll take this hairpin with you and exchange it for this Kuju noodle man." The old man didn't know what he was selling and glanced at it. The hairpin ignored her. She squatted closer to discuss with the old man. "Can you exchange this hairpin for me to touch you, a little Kuju guy?" The old man glanced at her hairpin with disgust. "I can't touch it, it's dirty." His Highness the Third Prince stood under a weeping willow tree a few steps behind her. At that time, he could only see her profile, but even so, he could see that she was unhappy. He watched her stand up in front of the stall aggrievedly, his eyes still fixed on the Kuju-faced man on the stall. He stared at her for a long time before walking away slowly, looking back 3 times after taking a step. Today she was wearing a light green boy's outfit, her hair was tied up, and a forehead protector of the same color with a white border was tied to her forehead. And her face is like a real young master without any makeup, but her eyebrows are like willow smoke, her eyes are like stars, her face is like dawn flowers, and her thin lips are like spring cherry blossoms. A face that has not lost its color at all due to the lack of makeup. And when she used that face to look aggrieved and lonely, it was really unbearable to watch. The Third Highness felt that he had a heart of stone, and the word unbearable was never in his dictionary. But a quarter of an hour later, he stared at the pile of boxes in his arms, and for a moment he was very confused, not knowing what he was doing. He seemed to be following Changyu just now, helping her buy face masks, sugar paintings, 12 square locks, and all the gadgets she had seen and touched. The streets were bustling with people, and His Highness stood at the intersection and doubted himself for the first time. He felt that all these things that Changyu was interested in were stupid, and they were far inferior to the wood carvings of Buddhist monks, Hua Dan, ivory carvings, and fairy carvings he made. And based on his taste, why should he buy these things to Changyu? A complete mystery. It happened that a Tong'er passed by him. He closed his eyes and thought, forget it. Out of sight, out of mind, he gave Tong'er money and asked him to send all the messy things in his arms to Changyu. Because Changyu ran all the way to the 2nd floor, he couldn't help but gasp when he reached the 3rd table. The Third Highness raised his eyes and saw the Kuju-faced man in her hand, and his eyebrows jumped uncontrollably. But Changyu didn't notice the look of disgust on His Highness the Third Prince's face at all. He happily held up the man in front of his eyes and made a circle. His joy was beyond words. "These things are all given to me by Brother Liansan. Did you buy it?" His Highness the Third Prince calmly stepped back, probably because he really didn't want to admit that he had spent money on such a stupid thing. He did not answer her question, but turned to ask her, "How come every time I meet you, are you all worried about money?" Changyu held her face and sat next to him, thinking for a while. "It wasn't just when you met me," she answered honestly. "When you didn't meet me, I was also worried about money." She sighed like a weathered old woman. "I've been worrying about money since I was 13 years old." As if she understood the difficulties of the world, she said in an old-fashioned way, "But this is life. What can I do?" After saying that, she was silent for a moment. "Life is really difficult, don't you think so?" His Highness the Third Prince looked at her for a while, then took out a stack of 1-inch thick banknotes from his sleeve and handed it to her. Seeing that she was still there and not taking it, he leaned over and helped her put it into her sleeve pocket. "Things about life. I don't quite understand, and I don't know if it's difficult or not. Just hold the flowers and think slowly." Changyu lifted up his sleeves and stared at the banknotes inside. His movements were a little funny, and his voice was full of doubts. "Is this pocket money for me?" His Highness the Third Prince poured himself tea. "Yes." Changyu pinched the sleeve containing the banknotes and said in disbelief, "But none of my cousins, including Jew Hibiscus, have ever given me so much pocket money." His Highness put down the teapot, and the bottom of the pot clattered against the table. He frowned and said, I'm also curious, how can they tolerate you being worried about money all the time? Chang Yu felt that she couldn't let Lian San misunderstand that her relatives were treating her harshly, so she bit the bullet and defended them. Then it's probably not their fault. Maybe I am a prodigal. And they are always hard to guard against when I spend money randomly. She was a little worried. Brother Lian San, this money is too much. Shouldn't I take it? His Highness the Third Highness looked up from his teacup. This conversation sounds a bit familiar. Qinyu immediately remembered his tough attitude when he gave her the tooth-carving fairy 3 times in a row. But she tentatively uttered a syllable and immediately saw Lian San's cool eyes as expected. She worried, but I'm always like this. Isn't it bad? Always like that? She hesitated for a while. I just eat and use yours, and now I'm still taking yours. His Highness the Third Prince glanced at her. Are you rich? She thought about how much money she had saved while in solitary confinement, and said vaguely, a little bit. His Highness the Third Prince said calmly, one thing is that it is gone. He looked at the kuju-faced man she had been holding in her hand and asked, do you like these things I bought you? She nodded honestly. I like it. His Highness the Third Prince said calmly, then I like them very much. He continued, want to send them back? This time she made no sound. His Highness the Third looked at her. I don't have money, but I have many hobbies. If you want to live a good life, besides eating and using what I have, what else do you think you can do? Qinyu thought for a while, but couldn't think of a way. Alas, she sighed, that's why I say, life is really difficult. The Third Prince made the final decision and put an end to the matter. Then let it be like this. Chang Yu obviously felt that it was not appropriate to do this. She lowered her head and thought for a while, then she lay on the table and asked Lian San. Then, Brother Lian San, do you have anything you particularly like? She looked sideways. She looked at him and asked him softly, I learn things very quickly, and I learn everything very quickly. If you like something, I can learn it and make it for you. His Highness looked at her for a long time. Can I learn to sing? Chang Yu was silent for a moment. This is the only thing I can't learn no matter how hard I learn it. Brother Lian San, please replace me with another one. His Highness the Third Highness changed. Dancing? Chang Yu remained silent for a moment. I can't learn anything but singing and dancing. Brother Lian San, why don't you try another one? His Highness the Third Highness asked another one, playing the piano? Chang Yu was silent again, just singing, dancing, and playing the piano. His Highness the Third Highness interrupted her helplessly. Didn't you say that you learn everything quickly? Chang Yu glanced at him quickly, lowered his head again, and drew circles under the stool with his toes. Then no matter how smart people are, they all have shortcomings. His Highness the Third Prince said, you have quite a few shortcomings. Chang Yu dared to be angry, but did not dare to say anything. After thinking for a long time, he suggested, I am good at archery. Let me hunt a wild rabbit for you, Brother Lian San. His Highness the Third Prince smiled and said, I am also good at archery and can headhunt tigers for you. Chang Yu was speechless. Then I can still remember it photographically. His Highness raised his eyebrows. I really don't see that you have a photographic memory. Chang Yu remembered that she often forgot things in front of Lian San. Almost every time they met, he could pick out something related to him that she had forgotten recently. She felt that the topic was unsustainable and she felt helpless. Defending myself, then. I have to be careful so I won't forget. Maybe a lot of times. I'm not too distracted. Oh, I'm not too distracted. His Highness the Third Prince said. Chang Yu immediately understood that he had said the wrong thing and had to make up for it. Maybe sometimes I am drunk or thinking about other important things then. This time, His Highness the Third Highness was more tolerant and did not get serious with her. He only said, but even if you have a photographic memory, what does it mean to me? This is actually true. Chang Yu felt that it was too difficult to please Lian San. She almost racked her brains and finally remembered another unique skill. Then I can embroider. She was almost excited for this unique skill. Lian San, brother, you can embroider, right? As soon as he finished speaking, Lian San stretched out his hand and pushed hard. She was lying lazily by the table, not using any strength with her whole body. When he held her arm 3 times and brought her to him, she was like an ignorant moth flying towards the flame, without any consciousness. She threw herself into his arms without any reason or resistance. When she came back to her senses, she realized that there was a lot of noise in the hall. It turned out that the waiter who was serving food tripped over a table and chair when passing by the table behind them and spilled a pot of vegetable soup on the floor. She was sitting next to the aisle just now, but luckily Lian San pulled her in time to prevent the soup from spilling on her clothes. In a daze, she heard 3 people asking her, "Can you embroider?" Only when she calmed down did she realize that she was very close to Lian San, and then she was shocked to find that she was actually sitting on Lian San's lap, bowing slightly like a little shrimp, holding Lian San's right arm tightly with one hand. And Lian San's left hand was placed behind her to firmly support her back. Before realizing that she should be embarrassed, her face turned red first. It was an instinctive and unconscious blush, so the blush was a bit confusing. Her face was as beautiful as a red rose, and her dark eyes showed confusion, looking a little shy. But shyness is also innocent shyness. She sat on his lap and did not forget to answer his question. "I can embroider, and I am very good at it." Her voice was soft, as if water would drip out of her with a slight twist. She was obviously surprised by her sudden shyness. She was a little embarrassed and coughed in confusion. "Brother Lensan, please put me down," she said softly. The Third Highness did not let her go. His amber eyes captured her, just like a tiger capturing a beautiful Sika deer. Chang Yu instinctively panicked and struggled to get up. Lian San's right hand suddenly pressed down on her waist. She was extremely confused, her eyes were full of surprise, and she didn't understand the reason for his action, but her waist straightened during the struggle just now, so she no longer had to look up at him. She could almost look at him levelly. This subtle height difference made her no longer feel like a Sika deer. She finally dared to look directly at Lian San's face and his gaze. Then she discovered that there was no expression on that face. There was no expression on his face, but the moment she looked at him, a smile suddenly appeared between her eyebrows, and his warm breath came close to her ear. "Since you can embroider, then embroider one for me." Sachet. But she was so embarrassed that she could only act based on instinct. Her voice was still soft, with a hint of complaint. "Don't bully me because I don't understand." She gave him a gentle push, but of course she didn't. Pushing, she explained to him in a low voice and seriously, "Because shoes and hats are given to my brother, and sachets are given to my lover. To Brother Lian San, you need to give shoes." There was still a smile in his beautiful eyes, and his right hand was still pressing her waist. He actually imitated her and said in a low voice, "But I just want a sachet." His cool voice was deliberately lowered, just like a stream hidden in the moonlit night, with only that mysterious gurgling sound. People can vaguely identify where it is. There is an indescribable feeling of ambiguity. The voice sounded beguiling. She didn't know what to do, so she had to push him gently again. "Brother Lian San, you have to be reasonable." He held her hand that pushed him, and she trembled slightly. When she didn't know how to react, he had already let go of her. "Here comes my business." He smiled, put her on a bench beside him, and helped her straighten her wrinkled sleeves. "Go shopping by yourself." He then put the person she had left behind in the chaos. The kuju-faced man on the ground picked it up and handed it to her, as if nothing had happened. Chang Yuru left the restaurant in a dream, and only regained consciousness when he returned to the herbal tea shop. After she woke up, she had doubts about herself. Logically speaking, Brother Lian San was just an older brother. He helped her. She accidentally sat in his arms. This was a complete accident. How could she blush? She frowned and questioned herself, and she didn't come to a specious conclusion until the business in the herbal tea shop increased and the boss disliked her for being in the way. That may be because at that time, I was sitting like a little shrimp in Lian San's arms, and I subconsciously felt that this action was childish and embarrassing. Although it was such a bizarre excuse, she actually convinced herself, felt relieved, and breathed a sigh of relief. She is indeed an ignorant girl with no experience in romance. The official job of His Highness III is the National Advisor. After Cheng Yu left, the Third Highness who was leaning against the window and waiting for the Imperial Master to come up was the same cold and elegant Third Highness who had come earlier to drink tea and enjoy flowers alone, and who had come alone to have a half-day of leisure. However, his eyes would occasionally wander to the herbal tea shop across the street, and it was not until the Imperial Master sat down in front of him that he calmed down a little. The Imperial Preceptor Suji was an Imperial Preceptor granted by the late Emperor. It was 40 years ago that the Imperial Preceptor was coaxed by his master to come down to assist the late Emperor. At that time, the late Emperor was still a young man, and the Imperial Preceptor was also still a young man. Now the pine saplings on the late Emperor's tomb have grown to 3 feet high, and the Imperial Preceptor, who should have grown old, is still a young man. Therefore, the civil and military officials of the whole dynasty are in great awe of the Imperial Preceptor. One had to be in awe just to see that face of his. The year when the Imperial Master was picked up by his master to practice Taoism in the mountains, there was a severe drought and famine. At that time, I only wanted to be a disciple of the Imperial Master just for food and a warm bed. I did not expect that it would take such a long time to achieve enlightenment and ascent. However, he was born with a good sense of character, and the road was as smooth and open as possible, so when he grew up, he wanted to go back to his hometown and open a pastry shop in his hometown. But his master refused to agree after begging him many times. Until one day he got tired of begging his master, and his master just threw him into the late emperor's court as a national preceptor. The late emperor was a very unclear emperor. Even though there was no shortage of wise civil servants and brave military officers in the court at that time, the late emperor was able to bring all wise civil servants and brave military officers into the harem. When encountering such an emperor, it was difficult to maintain the stability of the country. Really, the only thing you can do is believe in metaphysics and rely on the national teacher. Therefore, during the reign of the late emperor, the imperial preceptor always had a lot of work and was always under great pressure. There were rumors in the court that he had a bad temper, but it was true that he had a bad temper. It was not until the death of the late emperor that the imperial preceptor's temper became a little docile. After Cheng Yun ascended the throne, he brought a new atmosphere to the Dashi dynasty. The young emperor was promising in Qingming. Due to the purge of the imperial court, it gradually became a Qingming court, and the imperial master happily lived a life of retirement, reading ancient books and studying pastries every day, waiting to deal with Cheng Yun this time. If he has not yet ascended to the throne, when the opportunity arose, he returned to his hometown to open his pastry shop. Today, the emperor is a caring emperor and knows the hobbies of the imperial master. Although he can't help the imperial master open a pastry shop, it is okay to reward the imperial master with rare ancient books from time to time. Recently, King Lichuan came to Beijing to report on his duties and presented many Nanran treasures and Nanran ancient books. The emperor selected a few volumes of the newly acquired Nanran ancient books and gave them to the imperial master. What the imperial master brought to consult His Highness the Third Highness today was one of the historical books. The imperial master spread the book in front of the Third Highness and asked him to take a look. He tapped a place with his knuckles and said, "This is it." The book was written in Nan Rant's words. Suji translated it and read, "Human ancestor Abu Tua led his tribe to move to this world. When he first arrived, he saw only a vast sky and earth. There were no 4 seasons, no grains, and no living beings. The tribesmen all cried when they saw this. 'We will die here.' They wailed sadly. Suddenly there was a goddess. Descending from the light, he is dressed in red clothes and has golden bells on his feet. He is as beautiful as the morning clouds supporting the red clouds, and his posture is like the cold moon spitting out its clear light. Nalando, the ancestor god of Abu Tua, leads the crowd to worship." Skip a few lines and continue. On the day of the sacrifice, Nalanduo cut the wind and rain to make a banner to protect the Dharma, and cut the plain clouds to serve as a bridge to the sky. The wind flags shook, the sky bridge suddenly rose, and thousands of knife points suddenly appeared in the bridge. It is as dense as a comb. The ancestor god Nalanduo pulls his black hair, wears red clothes, and walks barefoot on a sharp knife. Wherever he passes, golden bells ring, red lotuses bloom, and the Hongming shines. There are hundreds of miles of overpasses, and there are thousands of red lotuses. Nalanduo walking to the other side of the overpass, it suddenly turned into a light hanging from the sky. The light was like a colorful phoenix hanging its wings, shining down on the world. The vast world suddenly became clear and bright, and the 4 seasons appeared. Plants and trees grew everywhere, birds chirped and animals walked around, just like the 8 wastelands. The people of the clan howled, crying for the gift given by the ancestor god Nalando who sacrificed his life. Human ancestor Abu Tua was so sad that he searched for the immortal body of the ancestor god for 3 months and got a red lotus seed. The imperial master stopped reading at this point and was about to ask Lian San what he wanted to ask when he saw His Highness the Third Prince taking the initiative to turn over the pages of the book and wanting to look back. The next page is blank. His Highness the Third Prince turned another page, but there were words on it, but what was recorded on it was another matter. His Highness the Third frowned and looked up at him. "You want to ask me who Nalando is recorded in this book, right?" Su Ji said. "Exactly." Nalanduo in Nanran language, I think, he paused, should be translated as Ziti. The passage that Su Ji read just now really shocked Lian San. Such a complete record about Zhu Ti is no longer available in the 8 Wastes. Even if he handed this book to Dong Hua, he was afraid that the emperor would look down upon him. Treat each other. However, Su Ji, who had been reading this volume for a long time and had read this paragraph aloud to His Highness Tongsan, was not shocked when he heard the word Zhu Ti. Instead, he was a little confused. His Highness the Third Highness looked at the bewildered imperial master and said, "It seems that you have never heard of the name of the god Zhu Ti." He added, "I guess you have never heard of Nalanduo before." Su Ji pondered, "I have never heard of it." He said doubtfully, however, according to what is said in this article, mortals must have been brought to this world from somewhere by a king named Abudo, but at that time this place was very desolate. Later, with Nalando's sacrifice, the heaven and earth transformed and nurtured the 4 seasons and the 5 grains, allowing mortals to survive and thrive. According to this, Nalando should be the mother goddess of us mortals, but as for where the heaven came from, where do people come from? Although each tribe has its own legends, I have never heard of such a legend before. The legend cited as orthodox in the Central Plains is that Pangu opened the sky, and the brother and sister Fushi and Nuwa merged to give birth to a mortal. These are the 2 gods who control the wind, rain, and abundant crops among mortals. The Third Highness paused for a while. The Fushi goddess and Nuwa god that I know have never given birth to mortals, but the Nalanduo mentioned by the Naran clan. The Third Highness changed his words. This ancestral goddess is actually a member of our god clan. The god I have always worshipped is indeed the mother goddess of you mortals. Su Ji looked shocked. His Highness the Third Prince turned over 2 more pages of the book. This is not the original. The ink is new and the pages are not old. It is a copy. He tapped the blank page and said, "Is this page missing? Is this page missing? Can you lend me the original copy of the book?" Su Ji once assisted the late emperor for the entire dynasty. The late emperor was an emperor who had little ink in his stomach, but preferred to ask 100,000 whys. Su Ji had been tortured by him for more than 30 years, and had already developed the habit of solving all the 18 questions related to his ancestors whenever he encountered a question. Clear habits. Therefore, when the Third Highness asked the question, the imperial master was right. "Your Highness is right. This is a manuscript." But what the emperor gave him was originally this manuscript. Before His Highness the Third Highness could ask, the imperial preceptor had another answer. The kings of Lichuan in every dynasty have wanted to conquer the Nanran kingdom. Nanran borders Lichuan. It can be said that it is the most mysterious tribe among the E tribes in the southwest. It is good at using poison. He is good at the art of gu and is good at Chimanduanjia. There are many mountains and rivers in Nanran, which are mysterious and unpredictable. It is said that this generation of Prince Yokyuan found an ancient tomb in Nanran, and the ancient tomb contains records of the geographical wonders of Nanran's mountains and rivers. Feng Qishu had many ancient books, so he sent people to go into the ancient tomb and copy out the most important books in order to know ourselves and the enemy, so that we can survive 100 battles. The Imperial Master pointed his slender finger at the book with black characters on the white background on the table. This volume was one of the copies that was copied that day. But it is said that the original volume was added with secret techniques and turned into dust when exposed to the wind. Therefore, there is no original volume in the world today, only the copy. His Highness the Third Prince paused for a moment at the blank space in the book. So, the only way to know what is recorded on this page is to ask the person who copied it? Su Ji nodded. King Lichuan's rule is very strict. Although I have not found out who copied this volume from his palace, the more I play with these words, the more familiar they become. It seems that they were written by someone I know. The Hands of the Little Princess. The little princess was extremely intelligent and proficient in the languages of several ethnic groups. One year, she copied scriptures in 13 languages to pray for the Queen Mother. Among the 13 languages was Nanran script. And this princess, I was visiting Lichuan before that. His Highness the Third Highness tapped his fingers on the words. Human ancestor Abu Tua was very sad, and he searched for the immortal body of his ancestors in March and got a red lotus seed. He said lightly, "Then go and ask this princess." After red lotus seeds, she saw something else the day but forgot to copy it. The Imperial Master, who was able to ask and answer questions fluently, was stuck at this moment and coughed. This. His Highness raised his eyebrows. The Imperial Master coughed again. Well, Your Highness, you'd better not say it. It's just because you want to ask about this matter. If this matter reaches the ears of the princess, even if I ask, the little princess may not inform me. His Highness the Third Prince frowned. It seems that he is a princess with a bad temper. The Imperial Master said, "The little princess actually has a good temper, but towards His Highness, maybe." His Highness the Third Highness was a little surprised. As a minister of a foreign court, how can I have any grudge against a princess who was raised in a boudoir? The Imperial Master was silent for a moment. "Your Highness, please cancel her engagement." The Third Highness said, "I." Then the Third Highness remembered that there was indeed such a thing. At the beginning of his reign, the Empress Dowager offered him a marriage, but he refused since it was impossible for a god to marry a mortal. If you refuse, he will forget about it. His Highness the Third Prince frowned and was silent for a moment, then said, "I didn't retreat, I just refused." Su Ji sighed and commented sincerely, "For a girl's family, there is not much difference." End of Lotus Step Chapter 8, Book 1. By Tangqi English translated using Google.